This is Jimeel Charles with the team JD Tan for your Daily Raptor 101. Today we will discuss three articles that have been occurring issues our country faces. The first article, the National Health Interview Surveys, explained that the National Health for Centers Statistics is aided by the Affordable Care Act to improve and to keep track of the patients on a state and federal level. They were able to conduct further research and monitor the impact of health reform on health insurance coverage, healthcare access, and utilization. The National Center for Health Statistics currently health researchers study the health policies as it shifts and changes. The National Health Interview Survey helps with information for the policymakers. The implicit racial ethnic bias among healthcare professionals is evident and it influences health care outcomes. A systematic reviews shows that significance of low to moderate level of implicit racial ethnic biases were found among health care professionals in every study expected. The last article, Community of Color Creating Healthy Environments to Combat Childhood Obesity, has a three-lens conclusion that promotes community health. First, it requires health professionals to be open to addressing health disparity among people of color communities, demonstrating cultural humility and competency, advocating community-based organizations to lead programs, planning, and targeting important issues. Through the third lens descriptions, healthcare professionals are able to partner with communities, stakeholders, resulting in potential advancement of health in ethical communities through environmental and policy changes. To get into further details, we have Ms. Telisia Isaac with Healthcare Disparities and the Affordable Care Act.
The ACA's main focus is to help make health insurance more affordable for people in America. The ACA today has a huge impact on health coverage disparities. Disparities in healthcare occur all across America. Despite the effort to address racial and ethnic disparities across the country in the field of healthcare, the ACA remains at stake. Disparities occur when the quality of care received when access to care is taken into account. Patients from different backgrounds and ethnic minorities often have it worse than white people on a high range of indications. These indicators include life expectancy, infant mortality, relevance of chronic diseases, and insurance coverage. It mainly affects groups, and most of these groups are primarily of color. Certain groups have a higher risk of being uninsured, having more limited access to care, and experience poorer qualities of care, and ultimately experience worse healthcare outcomes. Healthcare can be viewed through a broad range of dimensions reflecting into different economic and environmental factors. Disparities do not affect and impact groups, but it also limits continued engagements and quality of care with different populations as well as higher costs at risk. It is important to make healthcare a little more diverse as the population continues to increase. For the past years, there has been increases in addressing disparities as the population grows in numbers. Reducing disparities at a larger quantity and increasing the set of initiatives to address the federal, state, community, and provider level all take additional effort. The ACA includes coverage expansions that limit the cost of care for low-income populations and primarily people of color. Some people have different coverage rates, however, disparities among different groups remain at stake. As the population continues to become more diversified, factors that increase or decrease environmental and social settings that extend beyond healthcare will continue to be important.
Thank you, Ms. Isaac. Now we have Ms. Nekia Lewis with the Zubik and Brill issues.
Thanks, Jimeel. Today I'll be talking about the Zubik vs. Burwell issues and health disparity. Bishop David A. Zubik, the plaintiff, sued the U.S. government by arguing that they should not have to fill out forms because doing so makes them complicit in providing women with contraception, which is against their religious belief. The plaintiff's argument that they should not have to fill out forms is rooted to the Religious Freedom Restoration Act of 1993, which prevents the government from placing a substantial burden, in this case paperwork, on religious beliefs. On the other hand, the defendant Sylvia Burwell, the Secretary of the United States Health and Human Services, also known as HHS, argues that since a secular third-party issuer takes over once these religious employers sign the paperwork, religious freedom is no longer a point of concern, and that these companies are actually making an attempt to infringe on women's right not to protect their own religious freedoms. It centers on an exemption to the Affordable Care Act's legal requirement that employers must cover contraception costs without charging copays. Certain employers can opt out, but the employer must fill out a 2-page form explaining why in order to do so. There are 3 big issues that arose in the case. 1. Employer-sponsored health insurance. 2. Women's rights to contraception. And 3. Religious freedom. A health disparity in this case is that if the employer decides to opt out, it will be difficult for women to receive preventative care without the expensive costs. This will extremely affect middle and low income citizens and may lead to an increase of unplanned pregnancies, abortions, and unplanned births.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. We also have Ms. Akilah Jackson to explain cultural competency and humility.
Racial and ethnic disparities in healthcare, whether insurance coverage, access, or quality of care, are one of the many factors producing inequalities in health status in the United States. Eliminating these disparities is politically sensitive and challenging in part because their causes are intertwined with a contentious history of race relations in America. Nonetheless, assuring greater equity and accountability in healthcare system is vital to the progression of our country. To do this, we need to use the combination of cultural humility and cultural competence. Cultural humility is defined as an ongoing process of self-reflection and self-critique. It entails working collaboratively with clients and embracing difference. It is also taking the learner stance and seeking to address and readdress structural inequalities. A step forward in this would be to acknowledge every individual as the expert of their own race or ethnicity. Cultural humility is really just about recognizing the individuality of people and learning how to approach every situation respectively. Understanding the challenges existing in the power dynamics between races and ethnicities is also very crucial. This is where the two ideas of cultural competence and humility get confused. Unlike cultural humility, cultural competence assumes that information in books and other learning mechanisms can be applied to a whole community. Many people do not know that we need cultural competence to be aware of these ethnic disparities and how you may want to approach issues, and you need cultural humility to understand and accept the uniqueness of individuals. This helps the solutions to be catered more to the individual's well-being. However, it is most important that you know these two share very similar intentions, which is to facilitate more respectful interactions between individuals from different cultural backgrounds.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. And our closing remarks, we have Ms. Darsha Romeulus.
Thanks, Jimeel. To finish up this segment, we spoke about the 3 articles, which are the National Health Interview Surveys, the Communities of Color Creating Healthy Environments to Combat Childhood Obesity, and the Implicit Racial Ethnic Bias Among Healthcare Professionals. Also, to practice social modesty is to keep up an ability to suspend what you know or what you think you know about a man and the speculations of their way of life. We also spoke on cultural humility and cultural competence, which share the similar intentions, which is to facilitate more respectful interactions between individuals from different cultural backgrounds. Also, the Affordable Care Act focus is to make health insurance more affordable for people in America. The ACA today has a huge impact on health overage disparities. Disparities in health care occur across America. Despite the effort to address racial and ethnic disparities across the country in the field of healthcare, the ACA remains at stake. Disparities occur when the quality of care received when access to care is considered. Lastly, we spoke about the Zubik v. Burwell case. Zubik, being the plaintiff, sued the U.S. government by arguing that they should not have to fill out a 2-page form, because doing so makes them complicit in providing women with contraception, which goes against their religious belief. And now, this will conclude our segment.
And this was GD Time with your daily Rattler 101.